This morning, you probably ate something within an hour of waking up. Cereal, toast, coffee with milk, a protein bar on your way out the door. You didn't think about it. You just did it, because that's what mornings are for. But the real answer to what your body actually wants in the morning is far stranger than anything in your kitchen cabinet. For most of human history, there was no such thing as breakfast. Not as a meal, not as a habit, not as a word. Your ancestors woke up hungry, and they stayed hungry, sometimes for hours, sometimes for most of the day. Their first meal often wasn't a meal at all. It was whatever they could find, fast, with their hands still cold from the night. So what did they actually eat? And why does your body still seem to be running on their schedule, even though you live nowhere near their world? Anthropologist Richard Wrangham has spent decades studying the diets of early hominins, and his research points to something surprising. Long before agriculture, before bread, before the very idea of a morning meal, your ancestors were opportunistic eaters. They ate what was in front of them. Roots pulled from the ground. Insects, whatever fruit hadn't rotted overnight. Occasionally, if luck and timing aligned, meat from a kill the night before, cold and tough, eaten in silence. There was no ritual to it. There was no plate, no clock, no sense of, this is the first meal of the day. There was only hunger and the search to end it. Wrangham's work on cooking suggests something else too. Once early, humans began controlling fire. Something changed in the rhythm of eating itself. Cooked food released more calories. It took less time to chew. It freed up hours that used to be spent grinding raw plant matter between molars. That single shift, cooking, may have reshaped not just digestion, but the entire structure of the human day. Suddenly, there was time. Time to talk. Time to plan. Time to wait, together, for food to be ready, instead of eating alone the moment something was caught. This is where the first real meal patterns may have started to form. Not breakfast. Something closer to a single central eating event, built around fire, built around the group. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer societies have found echoes of this same pattern today. The Hadza of Tanzania, studied extensively by researchers including Frank Marlowe, often eat only once or twice a day in any structured sense. Mornings for the Hadza are not for eating, they're for moving. Walking out to forage, track, dig, and climb, often for hours before the first real food of the day arrives. Sit with that for a moment. An entire population, living in conditions strikingly close to ancestral life, treats the morning as a time of work, not refueling. Your body, it turns out, may still remember this. There's a reason fasting feels manageable for many people in the early hours and far harder by evening. Researchers studying circadian rhythms, including work connected to Sachin Panda's lab at the Salk Institute, have found that human metabolism shifts throughout the day in ways that mirror ancient patterns of activity and rest. Insulin sensitivity tends to be higher earlier in the day. The body is, in a sense, primed to handle food more efficiently after a period without it, not immediately upon waking. This doesn't mean breakfast is bad. It means breakfast, as a daily ritual eaten within minutes of opening your eyes, is a remarkably recent invention. So where did it actually come from? The shift began with agriculture. Once humans settled into farming communities, food became something stored, not just found. Grain could be kept. Bread could be baked the night before and eaten the next morning without effort. For the first time, there was something to eat the moment you woke up, without searching, without waiting. But even then, breakfast as a structured meal didn't become widespread until much later. Historians point to medieval Europe, where eating early in the day was sometimes viewed with suspicion. The church discouraged eating before morning prayers in many periods. Gluttony, even in its smallest form, was something to be wary of. It wasn't until the rise of industrial labor, factories, fixed shifts, clocks dictating when a body needed to be where, that breakfast became something closer to what you know now. A fast, efficient refueling stop before a long stretch of structured work. Cereal companies in the late 1800s and early 1900s didn't invent breakfast, but they certainly shaped it. Marketing campaigns sold the idea that breakfast was the most important meal of the day, a phrase repeated so often it eventually felt like ancient wisdom instead of advertising copy. Here's the strange part. Your ancestors survived, thrived even, without ever eating that first meal you consider non-negotiable. That doesn't mean you should skip it. It means the urgency you feel, that almost moral weight around eating right when you wake up, isn't coming from your biology in the way you might assume. It's coming from a few hundred years of habit dressed up as instinct. What your body actually evolved for is flexibility. The ability to go hours without food, then eat substantially when food became available. Feast, then patience. Patience, then feast. That rhythm, not 3 structured meals a day, is closer to what shaped the human body over hundreds of thousands of years. Modern research on intermittent eating patterns echoes this. Studies on time-restricted eating, including work reviewed by researchers like Walter Longo at the University of Southern California, suggest that compressing eating into a shorter window can align more closely with how ancient metabolic systems were built to function. The body doesn't panic at a missed breakfast. In many ways, it was built to handle exactly that. So why does skipping breakfast still feel uncomfortable to so many people today? Partly habit, partly blood sugar patterns shaped by years of eating a certain way, and partly the simple fact that hunger, even mild hunger, is uncomfortable. And humans have always tried to minimize discomfort when food was available to do so. There's something almost poetic in this. Your ancestors didn't eat breakfast because food was scarce, unpredictable, and required effort to obtain. You eat breakfast because food is abundant, predictable, and requires almost no effort at all. The behavior looks similar. The reason behind it is the exact opposite. Think about that next time you reach for the cereal box without a second thought. What feels like instinct, automatic, ancient, deeply human, is sometimes nothing more than a habit a few generations old, inherited from factory whistles and marketing slogans rather than from the deep evolutionary past. And what actually is ancient, the long stretch of morning hunger, the body running lean before the first real meal, has quietly become something people now pay wellness experts to recommend, as if it were a discovery instead of a default. Your ancestors weren't fasting on purpose. They were simply living in a world where food came when it came, and not a moment before. Maybe the question isn't whether breakfast is good or bad for you. Maybe the real question is why a single recent habit managed to convince an entire species it was eternal. This morning, you probably ate something within an hour of waking up. But the real story behind that simple act stretches back through fire, fasting, factories, and marketing campaigns. Far stranger and far more recent than your body was ever designed to expect.